Welcome back to MA1 Disc Golf. This video is the second day of a 2-day tournament that I just played in Pensacola, Florida called the ARGO Classic. You can look tomorrow, but not today. The first round, I played really solid. You can watch that video at the end of this one, but needless to say, I shot the hottest round that I've played, and I have a 3-stroke lead coming into today on a very, very, very hard course where strokes are hard to come by. Not big stroke swings, but like birdies. As I'll tell you in a second, right before I tee off, I was very sore for the day, but I knew that as long as I played clean, there wasn't really a big chance that I could be caught. It was if I started playing poorly. So obviously I want to try to get birdies, especially on the holes that there isn't much risk in doing that, but playing clean and just playing par golf is all you need on this course because even par is 1,000 rated here. So in this video, I want to break down shot by shot every single shot that I threw, except for one that I forgot to press record, but it was just an off shot. Don't worry, it wasn't even that good of a shot. So you can see what it looks like to go into a tournament with a 3-stroke lead and hopefully come out of it with a win, maybe by a decent bit too. But subscribe to the video if you haven't yet. You can look at these tomorrow because they're going to be dropping around 1, 2, 3 o'clock whenever I get the video up. They dropped for patrons today and you get a discount code. So if you want to sign up for the Patreon, go sign up down below. Lots of other cool benefits as well. Otherwise, let's get into the intro and then on to hole number 1 where you'll have me in the booth doing some commentary, breaking everything down. All right, tournament day 2. I feel so sore right here. So just try to get warm, just play safe. Don't need any crazy scores. So here we are stepping up to hole number 1. It's a 440-foot par 3 to start off straight down this driving area. I end up putting this a little low, but it seems good out of my hand until it starts to turn a little too much. It actually crashes into those bushes. Is that hit in there? I think it went up and in touch, but... Yeah, so it's right there. So unfortunately, it had popped out of bounds, but this is the area that we had decided was where my lie would be.
So I'm just gonna take relief back to here then.
But what I'm doing here is taking relief back to where I was able to throw from, pitch up my zone. Luckily, a pretty solid pitch up, a little nervy to get started. Drop in a bogey to start. Not how you like to see it, but the person who was 3 strokes behind me also took a bogey, so it's not the end of the world. Hole number 2 here, I had parked yesterday with my ESP zone, so I'm throwing the same shot, but I had just looked at the tee sign and saw it was 265 feet, which scared me a little bit, so I ended up ripping on it way too left. Really bad shot.
Wow, never high.
Here we have my upshot from where I went out of bounds, just taking my Razor Claw 3. Kind of thought I cashed it for a second, but luckily pitched up for an easy bogey save. Again, luckily though, the person who was 3 strokes back from me also took a bogey. So we're stepping up to hole number 3, 772 feet. Honestly, should be a par 5. I threw my river into the left side of that tree that's just to the left of that gap. So I'm deciding to pitch through with a forehand with my Grace. That way, if I get a really good hold of it, it will keep going straight and maybe get me about 360 feet. But I threw it a little high, calling it for hit something. Luckily it did and sat me down in the middle of the fairway. So here I'm looking, where do I pitch up? Because there's a big opening about another 150 feet in front of me. I decided to take my EMAC Truth on a forehand line, just like I did yesterday after I pitched out from my bad lie, and throw it through this tight little gap to try to get down into the bowl, which is a pretty open area. Luckily, as a mid, it ends up turning for me, and I'm already picking up my stuff because I knew I peered that line, give a little fist bump, and now I'm looking at the basket. I ranged it to 295, and so what I'm gonna pull out is my more overstable Thunderbird, because I was thinking just take a really easy chip hyzer, make it real wide, but to the left of the basket, about 37 feet, is OB. So I decided to switch it for my EMAC Truth and just throw that on a little bit of a hyzer flip line, a little too much hyzer though. Jaden's calling for it to hold on. Luckily, that's why I threw the mid, because it was gonna drop to the ground instead of glide out of bounds like a fairway could have, so I left myself with about 26 feet. Luckily, yesterday, I was 100% inside the circle, so I was hoping to keep it going today.
Low.
Right out of my hand, I knew it was low though. This is unfortunate, not really in terms of scoring, because the person who was 3 strokes back of me did take an 8, so it still was a 3-stroke swing, but we're moving up to the football field hole where we had a little bit of company. So as I'm in my backswing, just listen. Right as I'm starting to pull through, a dad calls for a kid to not run in front of me, but the course gave me a little bit of love and I hit off of that light bulb back inbounds into the football field. And so now I'm ranging, I'm about 235, just got to pitch up. There's a little bit of wind, which makes me a little nervy, so I actually pull this forehand chip shot. Should be a super easy shot.
It's good, it's good. That's right where I want to be, just outside circle.
Literally just outside circle. End up ranging it, and of course you always want to confer with your card.
I got 34 here, but...
I was getting 34 to 36 feet, so I wanted to call and make sure that they were comfortable with this being outside the circle since there were no markings. And I'm glad I was outside the circle because I banged that circle 2 putt to save my par and stop the bogey train. Now I have 7 strokes going into this next hole where they actually moved the tee pad, so we had to be a little bit more to the right, making this right side house come even more into play. Not a house, it's a building. Ended up throwing a massive hyzer, which is a little bit too safe, but I was a little juiced because I literally just met Eric Oakley and we decided to collab. So kind of a little bit of networking in the tournament. Got me to this point where I'm testing the wind again, because again, I ranged it to 440 feet out from the basket, taking my grace, and just no wind today. Simple, little, straight to hyzer shot.
That shot.
Out of my hand, I knew it was absolutely perfect. Give that little fist bump. Let's go, because I'm 6 feet away for a birdie from 440 feet out. That feels amazing. Here we're moving into the next hole where we have that basket all the way over there, and I marked off the OB with that masking. I'm going to throw my grace instead of my rive, and here's why. Yesterday my rive skipped huge. The grace, when I throw it this hard, is gonna flip up a little bit, and when something flips up, it slows down enough that it's not gonna hit the ground and get a big skip. So as you saw there, it just hit and sat. Heck yeah. Big name of the game today is just finding and staying in shade. Being cool because it's freaking hot. This is another interesting decision, and it really shows you how uncomfortable I am with my fairway slot. I went ahead and arranged this and it said 365, which is pretty comfortable fairway distance for me. I just didn't know what fairway to throw. Luckily, we are going up a hill, so I said, hey, I can just disc up to my grace, throw it hard, but I did keep it a little bit too low, meaning that it stayed close to the ground. Luckily, it was inbounds, but it didn't have any finish at the end of it, which is why I'm not super comfortable. So you look up here, I'm definitely not running any putt. I'm not even looking to run a putt. I'm just looking to see where to pitch up. Do I go through those trees? Luckily, I remembered that I have a meter off of that OB, so I went ahead and take it. Still trying to decide where to pitch up, what angle to pitch up on, because you want the grade of your disc to match the grade of the ground. So I finally find a place that I feel comfortable with. Pitch up there, and because I'm on top of that disc, I just head over to mark it so that he can putt out, and then I'll be able to putt after, looking straight into the sun. That feels good to take forward there. And honestly, most of the time, par felt like a birdie, but we're moving into the next hole, which is 375 feet, super tight line. Luckily, I kind of peer the line. I'm really liking these low shots, and I get a little skip in front of some trees, which puts me inside the circle.
Yes, sir.
Wasn't quite bullseye, but it was right at that about 25, 28 foot mark, which should be a birdie. This should be a putt I make every single time. And as you can see right here, I'm just kind of struggling with committing to putts and throwing to or through the basket instead of just up. I'm hating this 28-foot distance. I'm just not committed to 2 putts now. Let's make those the only circle and misses I have today. That brings us to hole number 8, which is the hole that I parked yesterday, 256 feet. I'm again deciding between my pure and EMAC truth, and I'm like, let's just go with the same shot as yesterday. But when you throw a really good shot the day before, sometimes you get a little lazy, and I end up throwing it through those bushes. But it's about time that I make a big putt. Unfortunately, I didn't realize that in the moment, so I missed that putt off the band, just like literally everybody else on the card, which is kind of funny. Took the par, and now we're moving on to hole number 9, which yesterday I threw a mid, and it was a little bit short and low, so I disc up to my trusty Thunderbird and just lace it. One of the prettiest shots that I made all day, except one of the best shots of my life is actually coming up in a future hole. I throw that to honestly where I could probably just jump putt up and take my birdie since this is a par 4, but I decided to forehand my ESP zone.
Oh my gosh.
Just let go of it a little bit early. Luckily, it's still inside the circle. Let myself about 20 feet. Let's try to fix circle 1 putting. And luckily, I'm able to connect. I pause a little bit longer at the bottom, which moves us to my nemesis hole. Hole number 10, 322 feet, just straight up the gut. Should be an easy backhand line with a putter or a mid-range, but I didn't pure it yesterday and I wasn't trusting it today, so I throw my EMAC truth on some forehand hyzer, and I thought it sat down.
Feels good to start flexing that.
Did it keep rolling? Oh my, no. That's a way worse spot. And that brings us to a good time to talk about gap selection. Here we can see I'm really trying to look at what the gap is. There's one gap right there that I'm like, maybe I can sneak a forehand through on just some hyzer, but then I see this little gap, which is a little bit harder to hit. It's a little bit further down the fairway though, so if I miss, I'm further down, and I decide to just throw up my Razor Claw 3, pure the gap on a flex line. Pretty great shot for an easy par save. If I can make a circle 1 putt apparently today. Once again, I'm following through up instead of forward. Big mistake, gonna go ahead and drop it in, and I have some choice words for that putter. Go in the basket, you little shit. Okay, on to hole number 11, 428-foot par 3. I was the only birdie of the day yesterday, so I figured, hey, let's just recreate that shot. I think I have about 8 strokes going into this hole, but I throw it on so much hyzer instead of flat, and bad shot.
You're gonna be like, you see them 2 skinny trees?
Yeah, I see them.
Not super happy about it. I'm having to go into the woods, and I do find a little gap to pitch out, but it's a forehand and hyzer gap, and I decided to throw an understable disc because I did not take my time. Comes out, and because it's forehand and hyzer, it just starts to roll.
Bye-bye.
Just misses that car.
Did not take my time.
I really should have chosen a Razor Claw 3 there because that would have panned down because it's so overstable and kept me in the fairway. Instead, I just pitch up with my ESP zone from out of bounds, and now I'm trying to tap in for my double bogey. I did lose 1 stroke to the person who was behind me on that, but I have 7 going into this hole, which is hole number 12. This hole also ate my lunch yesterday, if you saw that video. So instead of trying to just throw a shot I'm not comfortable with, which is that backhand, I just pitched through a forehand because this really I'm treating like a par 4. It's one of the holes on this course that I really need to treat that way.
Through the initial gap. That's good.
And I'm pretty happy with hitting that gap. As you can see, the basket is down there, and there's that straight gap right here that's like, this would be a really good gap to throw through, until I get in this patent pending stance and realize that's really tight to try to hit straight across my body, and I could give it a lot more anhyzer and throw through that far gap. So I take my pure and throw one of the prettiest shots I think I've ever thrown in a tournament. So happy with that, literally set down underneath the basket. Thanks, Jaden, appreciate you. Hole 13 is a 527-foot combination hole. It combines 2 on the original course, and I throw my EMAC truth and don't think it's great.
That's exactly where I was yesterday, though. I mean, it got through.
However, I was a little bit wrong because it got to a really good spot, and here is a bad choice. I could throw through this gap and just have a straight pitch up, and then I decide to pitch up, but try to jump putt around that tree instead of remembering that I had a straight lane to pitch through with the same exact distance that I could have gotten. Jaden gives me my bag, and I'm headed to throwing again, and I'm deciding between throwing that pure on an anhyzer line or just pitching through my ESP zone on a forehand hyzer line.
More trees.
Behind more trees again, unfortunately. Missed my next shot, but here I am for a putt for the 5 from about 50 feet. Really good putt out of my hand.
It's the right place to miss.
Drop in my double bogey, which I think brings me back to being within 7 of the next person. So here I'm just saying, just hit the Mando. Don't really have to worry about parking the basket, just hit the Mando. Luckily I hit the double Mando. Pitch up and just take an easy par. But I was the furthest out, so I made other people make a choice of if they wanted to run the putt. Everyone took the par though, didn't lose any strokes, and we're moving on to ideally one of the easiest birdies on the course. Hole 15 is a 421-foot par 4, but I threw my shot right into the ground yesterday, so I'm just trying to get it up today. I throw my grace up a little bit, not really the best shot that I could have, but I didn't want to throw anything flippy. Get into a pretty solid spot, and the basket is behind those trees a little ways away. I'm showing you a gap now that I really have to throw through, and it looks pretty skinny because even though it's a pretty wide gap, in order to get a skip towards the basket, that's the line I needed to hit. Luckily with my Razor Claw 3, I was able to hit it pretty solid and leave myself about 20 feet, maybe 15. Just gotta clear all the pine straw because Florida, and we have a putt for the birdie. Able to get revenge on a super easy hole that I didn't get yesterday. Birdieville. And now we're moving into hole 16, which is one of the 4 holes that are left, and I can pretty much give up 2 strokes every hole, but ideally I don't want to do that. So I throw my grace on a forehand line. Not really the best shot, but I kept it low, and it gives me an opportunity to get up and down for another birdie. I do need to hit a pretty specific gap with my Justice because it's just far enough that I don't want to throw my Razor Claw 3, not far enough that I want to throw a fairway. So I'm looking at this gap with a disc that I haven't thrown in a tournament in a long time.
That's fine. If I'm gonna miss my line, I'd rather miss it there.
Sometimes you just forget how overstable the Justice is, but it leaves us in an area where we got a straight up and down for the par. I decided to throw my flippy or pure here, but I forget that I'm on an angle on the hill. So I'm naturally gonna release on hyzer if I feel like I'm releasing it flat, and I just didn't put it on enough anhyzer. And even though I could lay up the leading, I'm gonna run this for the par, obviously. I'm like 15 feet. Luckily, circle 2 putting's feeling a little bit better, and we're moving on to hole 17, where I made a stupid mistake yesterday that cost me a 1,010 plus rated round. Throw a pretty similar shot to the day before, ideally wanting to get into the middle of the fairway to give myself a solid landing zone to get up and down for the birdie. And this is the gap that I needed to throw through yesterday. I'm in honestly pretty similar spot to where I was, but I'm gonna go ahead and throw a backhand now with a mid-range from about 300 feet out and just pure the line.
Thank you.
Leave myself with about 15 feet for the birdie. One of the better shots that I've made. I've had a couple really good shots in this tournament so far. Make the birdie on 17. Moving on to 18, 312 foot par 3, straight downhill, OB just to the left of the basket. Pulled it way right. Don't even really know what to say there. And the basket is through those trees, and we really have to hit this one specific gap on a forehand. But if we leave it a little bit too far left, we're gonna go straight out of bounds before we can skip up towards the basket. My Razor Claw 3 has really been putting in some work for me this tournament, so I throw it again flat down there, has just enough overspillity to get back and almost skips into the basket, just beyond it, and we're sitting pretty for an easy par save. Really solid scramble. Moving into 19, 352. Let's try something funky. Tried something funky yesterday, did not work. Today, I'm discing up to Arrive instead of my Grace because it has a little more stability, and let's just let this play out.
The whole one? Well, that's where we're fixing to be. Oh, yeah. Get up. Oh, great.
Pretty solid reaction from the gallery. Pretty risky shot because it is 360 and there is that road just in front of the basket, but I had 9 strokes at this point, so stepping up here to take a 10th stroke on the field with a 30-foot putt. Gotta make one of these long ones. Luckily, it's for the win.
First place is Anthony.
Woo! Where? Thank you. I don't think it fits very well, but I like it. One thing I just remembered is after a win, what I always do is ink the discs that I won with.
There it is.
So cool. So my second win in MA1, and the question is, am I going to move up to MPO? First though, really quick breakdown. I shot +3, which actually my overall score +2 would have tied me with second for MPO, which is really solid. And my tournament rating overall was 994 because the second round was 978. I knew it could have been higher, and I wasn't necessarily playing for rating, just playing to keep my spot, which I really didn't have a lot of questions about except for any big blowups. So I was trying to mitigate that, just play safe down the stretch, even though I did get those 3 birdies in the last 5 holes. So the question of MPO comes up, which is kind of crazy to think about because I hadn't even touched a disc golf disc before 10 months ago, tomorrow. And now having played 5 MA1 tournaments in a row, getting third in 3 of them and first in 2 of them and averaging about 970-ish golf, that's what the PDGA says 970 plus is pro level. So I think at the local pro scene, I potentially could play an MPO, but I'm going to wait until next year. I have like 1 more A tier this year and any other smaller tournaments that I can find, and then start 2023 in MPO. But in order to make sure that I feel comfortable getting there, because I don't just want to play local MPO, I'm going to try to tour a little bit next year and play at least a couple Silver Series and whatever Elite Series that I possibly can. And if you guys want to subscribe to the channel, subscribe to the Patreon, buy these tomorrow, that will all help me on that journey to actually get onto some of those Pro Tour events and travel, because obviously that costs a little bit of money to do. But during the off season, starting this Saturday, we're going to be doing Project 100 together, where I'm going to be doing my off season training and walking you guys through it and the things that you can do to get better along the way by doing 1 fieldwork session per week at a minimum, 1 non-disc golf workout per week at a minimum, and 100 putts average per day throughout the off season. We'll get into that on Saturday. Subscribe for that video. I will be moving up to MPO, especially because my rule was win 2 tournaments, move up. But for now, I'm just really stoked that after playing this course blind the first day and then just holding my lead the second day, I was able to take down a tournament with a 994 average tournament rating. Can't wait for ratings day tomorrow. Watch my last tournament win right over here. Otherwise, watch this video, which breaks down how I got good fast and a little bit more about Project 100. I'll see you guys in those. Peace. See you tomorrow. Buy these tomorrow. Limited drop. Subscribe to the video. Like the video. I love you. Bye-bye.